name is Sarah Dobson. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the mediation case supervisor at SEED. So I just started December 1st. So there are some of you that I've gotten to work with and some that I haven't. So good to put some faces to names and email addresses. And today we are here with shelter in place. Conflicts have not ceased, as you might imagine. And there are a lot of folks that would rather hold off and meet in person, and there are others that are really wanting more of a responsive support for mediation to happen now, since we don't know really when we'll be able to meet in person again. So our hope is to get many of you feeling comfortable and confident to take your skills to the Zoom platform. And I know some of you have experience with that already, so I'll be happy to learn from things that you've learned along the way with that as well. And then full disclosure, I was planning to do my first Zoom mediation this week to at least have that experience to share. And it was scheduled for Monday and then got postponed till today. And then one of the parties canceled. So I will certainly be asking from those present who have mediated on Zoom to share that. So, and then I know many of us have experience either with Zoom or mediating that have, I'm sure, some ideas. So a few housekeeping things in the beginning. It looks like many of you have great Zoom etiquette already. But if you hover over your name that's in the bottom left corner of your image and you right click, you have the option to rename. So I'll just invite everyone that feels comfortable to put their name and pronouns there. So I just switched mine to Sarah, she, her. And another housekeeping piece, there are different view options. So right now, in the top right corner, you can choose between speaker view and gallery view. For our mediations, we're going to ask everyone to use gallery view, and that lets us see everyone instead of just a big version of the person who's talking. And obviously we like to do that so we can get the nonverbal feedback from the listeners.
Wait, can I ask a question? I just entered my new name. Oh, and then I just hit rename. Okay, I got it. And how do you do gallery view?
The top right corner, it says either speaker view or gallery view.
Top right corner of
the back window. Yep. And then since there are many of us on the call today, it looks like maybe everyone's already doing this, but we'll just mute if you're not speaking so we can just minimize background noise. So thanks for those Zoom housekeeping pieces. I also want to introduce Selena, who's another SEED staff member who's on the call today. Selena, do you just want to say hi and introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, so nice to virtually meet you all. It's a lot of friendly faces here. And I'm really looking forward to learning how to do this together.
Great. All right, so let's see. I would like to, there are 30 of us on the call right now, so since with a group that size, I won't have us go through and introduce each person, although I imagine some of you are seeing familiar faces and names. We will be I'll be showing a slideshow with a couple interactive features that I'm hoping will work. And then there will be one part where we'll do a paired breakout session where you'll get a chance to talk with someone one-on-one. So just a bit of heads up of what's to come. So I'm going to share my screen with you all. And, oh, actually, before I do that, one other piece for the opening that I don't want to forget. So SEEDS is, we want to do a land acknowledgement in as many of our trainings and things as we can to recenter that piece. So I just want to read a short land acknowledgement to lay that foundation. for today. So we are gathered on the unceded land of the Ohlone peoples, for those that are here in Berkeley, and many of us are on unceded lands for other Indigenous communities if we're calling in from other places. So I ask you to join me in acknowledging the Ohlone community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. And SEEDS acknowledges that it was founded upon exclusions and erasures of many Indigenous peoples, including those on whose land our organization is located, and on which many of us are sitting now. So if you're in a different region, you might be curious to look up which Indigenous communities were on the lands that they were likely displaced from colonialists past and present. So with that, I'd like to begin the presentation style piece. So let's see if you all can see this. I want to move that. Great. Okay. So I'm curious if you'll be able to hear, but Addie Rose is our executive director, and she wasn't able to get on the call today, but wanted to send a message to everyone. So shared this short greeting. And Selena, will you like wave me down if you can't hear? Darn. Okay. So there's a way that you should be able to hear this. And here we go. Okay, let's try again. Wave me down again if you can't hear.
Hi, Seeds Mediators. My name's Addie Rosemare, for any of you who don't know me, and I have the deep honor of being the executive director of Seeds. I'm sorry I can't be there today on the Zoom call to do the Zoom mediation training, but I just wanted to send you a heartfelt thank you. It blows my mind that folks who are holding so much in this uncertain time are still able to give to the community in the way that each of you does, to support everybody else's success. As you know, in uncertain times, conflict increases, it escalates, and our and your skill set and offering supports people to be sheltered in place with success and to lean in and prioritize relationships and to harness that power of conflict for good, for beauty, for deepening. And I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you so much. And we look forward to keep connecting with you and hopefully co-mediating with you. I hope you and your family and your community are all healthy and hopeful.
Yeah, so it was important for Addie Rose just to know, just for you all to know that she very much is, I think, inspired by the work of the community mediation program and the generosity of the volunteers that work with us. So, all right, so I think I'm gonna move that maybe at the bottom. So I think we did our housekeeping. So we're muted. Just another trick in case y'all.
Can I ask a housekeeping question?
Yeah.
Would you like us to interject like this if we have a question, or put it in chat?
Thanks. Yeah. Let's throw them in the chat, and then I'll ask Selena if you can manage those, and if it feels relevant right then, Selena, I invite you to interrupt with it, and if it feels better to sort of, that's not as relevant to the moment, you can sort of collect them, and then we'll have time throughout to check in on questions. Thank you. Great. Okay, and then just another Zoom piece. If there's something quick, instead of clicking mute and unmute, you can hold the space bar for a temporary unmute. And we talked about names and pronouns and the gallery view. So that name and pronoun practice and the gallery view is something that we're going to be using during mediations. Okay. So I've done some talking. I want to give everyone a chance to check in. This is always important, but also I think people are, these are unusual circumstances that we're finding ourselves in. So Selena will put everyone in pairs for a breakout group. And rather than just sort of a casual conversation, I'll ask us to use this as a listening practice. So you can have one person go first and just share, and the other person can listen without interrupting and really listening and feeling for those feelings and emotions that are coming up. And then we'll ask you to switch. And I'll ask you all to just sort of gauge. We'll have 2 minutes, but just try and switch halfway through, and then we'll come back together. All right, so Selena, if you can send people off into those pairs. And Selena, I'm getting an invite. Should I join or not join? Join to make it even?
Join. But everyone else should see an invite.
And can you pause the recording here to communicate during Zoom? So certainly you can talk transparently in front of parties and work things out, but you might want to talk ahead of time, for example, about when you're feeling like things are getting ready for a break. If you want to sort of check in with your co-mediator about that, how do you want to go about it? Or if you want to go in a different direction, or thinking about interrupting or pausing. So certainly we can do things in the normal way that we would without coordination, but we won't have that ability to sort of like look next to us and gauge how to like feel out our co-mediator in the same way. So I would just invite people, if you want to unmute for a moment, if you have ideas for visual cues or written communication, or things that you have used in practice before that you offer.
This is for clues doing when it's Zooming.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No clue.
This is Katharina. So one thing you can do is write a chat just to the co-mediator that nobody else will see. So you can communicate that way. That's kind of like when you're sitting next to each other and you pass a note.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Katarina. So an equivalent of note passing would be that Zoom chat. You can select whether your message goes to everyone, which is how it's automatically set for me at the moment, or you can select to send to just one individual. Great.
This is Claudia.
Yeah.
I think I would probably do what I do in a live mediation, which is just say, you know, Lynn, what do you think about going in this direction rather than what we're talking about now? Or what do you think about taking a break? I have a couple questions I'd like to ask you specifically, you know, or something like that. So I don't think I would do it very differently, is I guess what I'm saying.
Great. So just sounds like very transparent, just pausing and asking the mediator, and it doesn't have to be something like discreet. It could just be out in the open. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to tag along with what Claudia was saying, it seems like on Zoom or, you know, video conference, you can't be super subtle. You know, you've got to maybe be more externally, you know, more communicative, more clear than even previously. So just saying out loud, not waiting for people to take the hint about something, but just saying really clearly what you need. Like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I need. Let's take a break. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so it sounds like leaning toward more or over communicating because we do have a little less of the nonverbal or energetic communication. Thank you.
I agree with Claudia because I think it models for the participants how you can talk about a difference of opinion or how you want to share, or those kinds of things. And I think that's really important in mediation. So,
So modeling that transparency can also be a good opportunity to just model a way to communicate really directly and transparently and honestly. Yeah. And I might add.
I'd like to offer something.
Please.
I'd like to offer something around co-mediation that I don't think we've addressed yet, which is how you would set up a co-mediator as being a co-facilitator to start with, so that you can pass back and forth the facilitation functions between each other, rather, you can't, what I've learned yesterday is you can't both actually have the full same power at the same time. Only one can be the facilitator or the host, and one can be the co-host, but you can pass back and forth between each other, who at any moment is the host or the co-host and has full access to all the technical possibilities.
Yeah, so you're keying in on Zoom has host and then co-host, which has some but not all of the capabilities. And what we'll be doing for the SEEDS mediations is having people sign in on the SEEDS info account. And we can have, and that's like a business account, which has more features than the personal account. And multiple people can sign in on that account at the same time and therefore have multiple hosts. So, and we'll have like step-by-step instructions on that, but people will need to actually use this SEEDS account because the personal accounts don't allow you to do group meetings for more than 40 minutes. And we need 3 hours or more, so great. Any other thoughts for strategies for communicating with your co-mediator on this different platform?
Yes. Sometimes I think you might have to be a little bit more directive about people that just kind of tend to sit and become complacent. You might have to try harder to get them involved. Ask them more questions, see what they're doing, see if they get up and get coffee or whatever. Some people just become really complacent because it's really easy to just zone out in front of a computer.
Yeah, so it sounds like strategies for engaging when people might start to sit back and have maybe a little less connection or engagement on a screen. And my understanding is that people have shorter attention spans on screens, so using more breaks than usual can be important as well. One other piece that I'll add to this is that interrupting on a screen can feel a little harsher. I think in person there's probably things that we do to try and soften interruptions. And we might want to just preempt that in the beginning by letting people know we may have to interrupt. And when we do, we'll say, I want to pause you, but just to frame in the beginning that interrupting over a screen can feel harsher and we're doing it in service of facilitating a dialogue, etc. But to preempt that a bit. If people have, I want to move to the next piece, but if people have other thoughts around communicating with co-mediators, you feel free to share them in the chat. And, oh, I see that Zoom is temporarily allowing unlimited, great. To share them in the chat. And I know, like, for myself, I am too nervous about accidentally sending a message to everyone on Zoom instead of just the person I meant to. So I'm probably not going to use the Zoom for private messages. But if there were like red flag concerns coming up or something I didn't feel comfortable sharing with all the parties for some reason, this morning my co-mediator and I had decided we could text as a way to not accidentally, for me to not accidentally message all the parties if I wasn't intending to. And I see a question around writing up a one-pager. Yeah, there'll be a few resources shared at the end that you'll have access to. All right. So I want to talk about like adjustments for a few different parts of the process. So we talked a little bit about working with our co-mediator, which we can work out in advance. And then a few other adjustments. First for the opening. And then we'll sort of move through in sequential order. So I see some other questions coming in, but we'll go through in that order and then see if those get answered. For the opening, today we use this feature so that you all could sort of see how it worked. We use the waiting room. So similar to how we wouldn't invite parties to sit down with the mediators before everyone has arrived, because that could disrupt the balance a bit. When people enter, they'll be put in a waiting room. And once everyone has joined, then we can invite them all to join the call at the same time. And when you're the host, it'll notify you so-and-so has joined the waiting room, so-and-so has joined the waiting room, and then you can select to admit people to the call. And there's images on the screen there of what it looks like to the participant is please wait. And then for the host, you can see that people are waiting and you can admit them. So that's the waiting room, so that we'll be using. And the default setting for the Zoom account is that it'll set up the waiting room for you. So you'll have to let people join the call. And maybe just to note too, if a call drops and they rejoin, you'll have to re-admit them. Another piece that we would suggest adding as a ground rule in the opening, people could turn off their videos during breaks, but we don't want people to turn off their videos like if they get upset. So if we're having a difficult conversation and I turn off my video, that's going to feel pretty bad. So we want to add a ground rule of leaving the video on. We also, if the connection is poor, instead of trying to struggle through it, you can just have everyone mute and have everyone call in the conference line on their cell phones. And you'll have this information, but you essentially could just put it in the chat and have people call in and use whatever video you are able with whatever signal you have, and then have a clear audio, which can help move things along. And then a couple adjustments to confidentiality is that we would want people to also just disclose if people are within earshot. In the prep phase, we're asking that people have a private space to talk, but if one of my roommates comes in the room, it would be important for confidentiality that I let people know who's listening in. And we'll also ask, and I'm realizing, Selena, that I failed to do this today. We want to ask folks to agree not to record. As part of confidentiality, it can be really sensitive if somebody's recording the session, and we'll generally have the feature on the Seeds account side turned off, but somebody could use, in theory, a different app to record. So we want that to be part of the confidentiality, and the language has been updated in the agreement for Zoom mediations that they'll sign. And I'm realizing that today I failed in our intro to ask consent to record. So many people weren't able to join the call live, and we want to offer for them to be able to watch this recording. And I had intended in the beginning to say, if you'd rather not be visible or speak, that you could turn off your video or not participate in order to not be recorded. So since I failed to do that, I'll ask at this time that you could turn off your video if you'd rather not be captured, your image not be captured, and then please do email me if you have any concerns about that being shared in our mediator pool. And I apologize for not doing that in the opening.
One quick question, Sarah,
Yeah.
about the conference line backup. So is the idea that we stay on Zoom video for those who can connect to Zoom, but we turn our speakerphones or our speakers off and then use the conference line for everyone to
Yes.
communicate through audio? Okay, so two different systems simultaneously.
Yeah, I think as long as the video is serving some function, I'd keep it. So even if it's sort of jolted, if it seems like it's adding value, I'd keep the videos on. And if it becomes just sort of not adding value, then you could, at that point, depending on how things are going, you could try and continue just on audio. If that doesn't feel like enough to have an effective session, you could also just stop the mediation, and we could look into rescheduling, or whether people don't have the tech to be able to do Zoom, and we could try other like conflict coaching or something else for them. Okay.
Sarah, we have a few questions in the chat. Would you like to get to those now or at the end?
Let's see. So one of the questions I see is if people will be in the same room or in separate locations. We've decided that we want people to be in separate rooms on separate devices. That can be awkward for people that live in the same house. But a concern that we have is that mediators are on a screen far away, and if people are escalating each other and activating each other, it's going to be harder for a mediator to intervene and de-escalate from a screen. So if everyone is on a screen, I think it empowers the mediators more to facilitate and guide the conversation. So we're asking folks for separate spaces and separate devices. Okay. There's lots of questions. Selena, are there some that you were seeing that seemed like this was the moment?
I'm seeing an observation about battery life as well. For participants, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. So if people don't have battery life to go on the phone, unfortunately, the Zoom mediations require minimum tech abilities. So in the screening process, it's not going to be accessible to some of our community members. So as part of case development, we're asking if people have a level of comfort and understanding of video platforms. We're doing a troubleshooting Zoom call with them in advance, and people need minimum requirements to have reliable internet, a computer, a laptop, and a private space to talk. If we had to switch to conference line, it means there was an internet issue, and if somebody doesn't have the ability to charge a phone or to charge a computer or something like that, there could be all different tech issues that arise. So it'll be really up to mediators to navigate with the tech problems that arise. Is this something that we can navigate and still find that the session is helpful, or does it get to a point where we have to call it? And if we have to call it, we can look into rescheduling, or during this shelter-in-place phase, we're going to be doing more one-on-one conflict coaching, which would just require an hour and 15 minutes on the phone, which more people have access to. Okay, if you end up needing to dial in, you have to mute. Yep. Yep, so we'll have everyone mute on Zoom if they're on the phone. Yeah, and the conference line is only if the audio on Zoom is failing. So if somebody has a weak internet connection, the phone line might be more clear, reliable audio. That's when you would offer the conference line option. Great. Okay. Next phase. So lots of good logistical questions. And I'm realizing too, I could have shared more about what we're doing in case development to set you all up as well. So another piece that is different is that we won't be able to have people sign the confidentiality agreement as they arrive. So we've adapted the agreement slightly for Zoom, and we're sending it to everyone over email in advance and having them sign via DocuSign. So mediators also will get this and will need to sign. And you'll receive an email asking you to sign, and then you'll receive an email once all parties have signed. So it'll be up to mediators to keep an eye out for that notification that everyone signed. And if you haven't gotten that notification, in your opening, you'll need to bring it up and ask people, go into your email, look at this and sign it if you agree. And you can talk about anything related to confidentiality that needs to be discussed. So that's how we're doing confidentiality. Really important that we have everyone sign before we move forward with the mediation. Okay. And Selena, it looks like somebody's in the waiting room if you're able to admit them. I'm not sure if you got that message. All right, communicating with parties. We talked a little bit about interrupting. Okay, so interrupting is also just a skill, I think, not just over Zoom, but in mediation, if it feels like it's no longer in service of resolving the conflict. So I'll ask if Selena can help us again in setting up pairs for breakout rooms. But the invitation will be for one person to start talking about whatever you like. You can just, if you don't have anything that comes to mind, just start describing the room that you're in. And after 15 seconds or so, I'm gonna ask the other person to gently but assertively interrupt in a way that you might in a mediation. And I think that just getting more and more comfortable wherever your comfort level is with interrupting and seeing how that feels over the screen. So we are going to just let the first person talk for 15 seconds or so. The other person will interrupt. You'll switch. And then you'll have a few minutes after to just talk about how it felt to be interrupted, whether you felt respected, whether it was activating. So we'll give you, let's say, 4 minutes in small groups. So it'll only take about a minute for the interrupting part and then 3 minutes or so to discuss, and then we'll bring you all back. So if Selena can send you all off into pairs.
Great, I'll send you off, and then if you get stuck in a room by yourself, do not worry, I will reassign you quickly.
Okay. Selena, do I need to join?
No, you do not.
Okay. There was a quiz we were going to do together, but I'm going to send it as a follow-up. And we'll save questions till the end. I want to finish the presentation part by 4, and then if people want to stay after and ask questions, they're welcome. Or if you can't stay after 4, you can just follow up with me to get questions answered. So that's the plan. And I hope that you all enjoyed interrupting one another. If you want to share any reflections in the chat, be curious to hear how that went for folks. So I'll just pull back up where we were here. And we'll skip interrupting me. But a few other notes. So for the meat of the process, it'll be harder to distinguish between when parties are talking with us and that beautiful moment when they talk directly with one another. So we're going to need to be using people's names a lot, like to the point that it feels weird, just to really make it clear who we're addressing and who we're speaking to. So each time we address someone, to really encourage using names. And then when parties are invited to speak with each other directly, please encourage them to use the person's name when they're addressing them. And that's going to be really important for when we make that switch. And we spoke about taking more breaks than usual. But the meat of the mediation is really its ears, right? So not a whole lot is different about the part where people are getting to lay everything out on the table and to move through the process. So it's really the logistical pieces at the beginning and the end. So one of those other pieces is we're not in a room together to create the resolution. So one of the mediators will share their screen and draft a resolution. You can use a Microsoft Word, a Google Doc, open an email, but you'll use that share screen function, which will be in the bottom as indicated. And the other, when we share screen, people's videos get much smaller. So the other mediator will be responsible for really paying attention to people's reactions through this brainstorming part, because it could be easier to miss nonverbal cues that might be really obvious in the room if somebody is not in agreement with a suggestion. And once that resolution, the brainstorming happened, it's consolidated and finalized, we want to get everyone's agreement in writing somehow. So for now, the best we can do is that after we have the final resolution, parties can drop their emails in the chat, and then the person who drafted it will send it via email to all parties and ask everyone live to reply all, I agree, just so that people leave with some written agreement that people agree to that resolution. If people want a more formal document after, the office in the following business day or two can circulate it via that DocuSign piece. And then the last piece that's different is just that our evaluations are going to be Google Forms, and you'll be sharing these links, the client evaluation link in the chat. And we don't want to close out. We want to actually do this with people on the line, because it's very easy if we end the call first for us never to get these evaluations back, and they're really critical for our funding to be able to provide sliding scale. So I would encourage and request that you have them do the evaluation and then finish the closing. And similar to the mediators, I would really encourage you to do the evaluation and then close together. It's really easy for people to say, I'll do it after. And then we don't see as many of those return to the office. So this is a really critical piece that we're hoping not to lose by switching over to Zoom. Oops. Don't know why that happened. So that's the evaluations. And then the other, the other piece that was being asked about were resources. So the resources that we have available, the mediation binder that would typically be in the room, we have a PDF of that. So you have all the same documents that you're used to. So we'll send that out as an attachment as a reference point. And then the other pieces are, we have adapted guides, including the pieces that we've talked about today, for especially the opening and closing for mediating on Zoom. So I think I have it here, but it's essentially just an adapted opening, an adapted guide based on what we talked about today. So for before the mediation, it's the same document in black, and then the new Zoom pieces in another color in purple. And I'll share this with everyone after so they can read through it. An adapted opening with the Zoom pieces in purple, talking about renaming with pronouns and using gallery view and using mute and the conference line, the confidentiality agreement from DocuSign, and then in the debrief you have all the links. So you'll have this for your mediations and can use this in conjunction with that classic mediation binder that you're used to. So since we weren't able to do, there's a little quiz that we were going to all do together, but I'm also going to send that out and ask you all just to complete this training. If you could, it's like a 5-question true-false quiz, but it also will just help us track everyone that has already done the Zoom training, and then we'll be sending out those invites. So I'll stay on to answer questions, but to be eligible to do Zoom mediations with Seeds, we'll just ask after this ends. I'll send that follow-up quiz, and once we get confirmation that you've completed that, you'll be on our list to receive Zoom mediation requests. And for those that have to go right at 4, if you have more questions, I would be very happy to connect with you after. And you can email me at casesupervisor@crc.org, and we can also set up a time to talk if you prefer. And I'm really just excited that we have dozens of people that are about to be ready to take on some of these cases. Folks that are sheltered in place in conflict are very much hoping and ready for some Zoom mediations. So appreciating you all. So I'm gonna jump into answering a few questions, and for those that only had till 4, thank you so much for your time today. So
I'll say one thing that wasn't covered that I would love to see, lighting. I think lighting, especially in virtual meetings, is really important. Like, your lighting is amazing. I can see your face really easily. My lighting is like good over here, but a little bit shaded over here. Some people, I can't see their faces at all. And I'd love to have us really prioritize being seen and being crisp in the camera so that we're connecting with people, which is already hard to do visually over Zoom. And like being close and not being down here and not like, you know, all the things. So just want to point that out.
Yeah, thanks, Gail. So it sounds like just bringing up the importance of really being able to see each other. So we're further away, we have more barriers to connecting. So what can we do to have good lighting and angles to make that connection easier? I appreciate you bringing light to that.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the trick is front lighting, not backlighting. Backlighting makes us shadowed. Front lighting is what works. And I have my computer is just sitting on 2 games right now so that it's head on.
Oh, great. So lifting the screen and then front lighting. Thank you so much. Great. And I also see a question about folks that are in the observation stage, so new to the mediator panel. We are moving forward with observers. So we're still letting folks know that they'll have 2 mediators and potentially an observer, and have people continuing their training as observers. So yes. All right. Did I miss any other questions, Selena?
There were some questions. Oh, go ahead.
I'm also just realizing I'm happy to invite questions also if you want to unmute and ask a question. Happy to do a Q&A time.
Sarah?
Yes.
Hi. Thanks for this. This is really helpful. I think you were saying earlier that during the case development process, did I understand that that's when Seeds would be exploring whether people have the ability to be in separate rooms, whether they have the ability to, plug in so that they don't have to worry about their battery life, and both have the ability to be on video. Did I hear that right, or was there also something that was the mediator's responsibility in that?
So that's all right. So we will be taking steps to like screen and prepare people in case development as you've outlined. I will say that there still will likely be things that come up despite efforts to address them in advance. So for example, I scheduled troubleshooting like Zoom test meetings with both participants before the mediation today, and both of them scheduled, confirmed, and then didn't do them, for example. So there might be things that happen like that in case development where you're expecting folks to have tested things and the emails they're getting say, make sure you test your advice in advance, here's a link, but there will be things I imagine that will come up. So we'll do what we can to prep, and mediators will likely have some role to play as well.
Okay. Will you be able to let us know whether those sessions happened or not?
So realistically, I would like to say yes. For example, with this one, I scheduled both of the test calls last week. They both didn't attend, and then I rescheduled both of them, and then was trying up through the like reminder calls yesterday. And generally I send like the mediator confirmation further out, and I would still have kept trying. So it would require like another layer of communication that I don't know if I could consistently say that we would be able to add to the process.
We have some questions in the chat, Sarah.
Has the email gone out to sign up for Zoom observations yet? So the way that signing up for Zoom observations would work is when I send out a Zoom mediation request, you could reply and say, I'd like to observe, and then you could be assigned that way. So it won't be an extra email, it'll be the same email asking for mediators that you would respond to, and it'd be one email per case that goes out. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, so I see some nervousness about Zoom mediations, and would be curious too if you want to say more about that nervousness.
I was the one who wrote that, and it's just maybe my less comfort with using this kind of technology. So it's interesting because I'm thinking of, well, let me observe a Zoom mediation before I would do a Zoom mediation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where I am in terms of understanding it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, you're emailing us this quiz, or what's happening with that?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to change the format because it was embedded in the PowerPoint. So I'll figure out how to convert it, and then I'll send a follow-up email with the quiz.
Okay, thank you. And I want to remind everybody, it's interesting watching people on video. We touch our faces a lot. I just saw a lot of face touching, and every time somebody did it, I want to say, stop, stop. So please remember, do not touch your face. So.
PSA. Yeah, I touch my face a lot.
Yeah, we all do it. I mean, it's just, the average person touches their face 16 times an hour.
That's a lot.
I had a question.
Yeah, please.
Sarah,
yeah.
Have you done many Zoom mediations, and how successful have they been?
Yeah, I personally have not. At Seeds, we've done lots. So Addie Rose and Barbara have done many, and they helped put the training together, and have said that nothing nothing is as good as in person, and they've found it can be very effective and helpful.
Okay. Well, I was just kind of curious how they were turning out so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hi,
Hello.
Tammy here. So I do appreciate all the questions, especially around just feeling comfortable, and I do appreciate the training that you have offered. I'm also just thinking about the participants who have whatever anxiousness that they have going on. They may not also be comfortable with Zoom. And so it's also part of, I feel, our role is, making them comfortable on this platform as well. So just being kind to ourselves and knowing that we're all going through this human experience together and trying to figure out how best to support one another. So it's a both and for me. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So just hearing that, like, part of that hospitality piece that would happen in person, how can we bring that to this platform to really welcome people and put people at ease? And maybe also just to name that, like, the role of the mediator isn't to be a IT support person either. So, like, if there are tech troubles that come up or it's a little bumpy, I think that people can lend each other a bit of grace and patience as well, that we don't have to have a super smooth, very professional, polished Zoom experience. As long as we're able to connect, that's really what we're going for. Thank you, Tammy. All right, I will distribute the PowerPoint. And it looks like I missed one question. Maybe we can just end with that, and I just invite people to follow up with me too if more questions come up. And I don't see the question that I missed. A question related to drafting the agreement on shared screen. Is Marcia still with us?
Yeah, Marcia.
Marcia, thanks.
That's okay. So it appeared as if from the beginning of the drafting of the agreement that co-mediator shares their screen. Is that your intention?
Yes. So, for example, if I was going to be the mediator drafting the agreement, I would open a Microsoft Word document, and then I would share my screen so that as I'm writing down ideas, folks can see where we are.
Right. And the reason I asked that, I mean, I'm very comfortable with Zoom and sharing screens and all that, is because of the smaller image size for each of the participants. It's like we really lose that. When I've done decades of live mediations, the only time I actually display the ongoing brainstorm is if I'm standing at a flip chart, which hasn't happened often. I'm much more used to doing a drafting and being able to check body language and really check in with people and then present something that, how does this sound? So that would be my inclination.
Yeah, so it sounds like from your experience, wanting to keep the images large while someone drafts, and then maybe doing occasional screen shares to check understanding. I think that'd be a very appropriate way to use both, to value the visual feedback and to be able to make sure everyone is sharing understanding and clarity about what's being put.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Okay, well, I very much appreciate everyone's time today. It felt like it went quickly to me. So I'll follow up with an email. It'll take me a few minutes to figure out how to convert that quiz, and I'll share the resources, the PowerPoint, and the quiz. And once I get that short quiz back, I'll start sharing the search emails as the Zoom requests come through.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.